Welcome back to GMP Scenario, presented by PharmaContentLabs.com.
Okay, let's dive right into this. In any regulated environment, every single decision that quality assurance makes has got to be defensible. But what does that really mean? Today, we're going to break down why objective evidence is so critical, and we'll do it by looking at a very common and, honestly, a very dangerous scenario.
I'm willing to bet you've seen a statement almost exactly like this in a deviation closure before. It sounds so clean, right? So efficient. Final. On the surface, it seems like the job is done, but you've got to look closer.
And boom, there it is, the million-dollar question. That simple, tidy little conclusion is just hanging there in midair, with absolutely nothing holding it up. This is the exact moment a simple sign-off can turn into a huge liability.
So let's treat this like a real case file. What we're looking at here is a deviation that was accepted purely on faith, not on fact. Let's really dig in and see exactly where this went wrong. Now, what's really telling here is just how specific the lack of proof is. There are no logs, no printouts, no trend data to show us what the process parameters were doing over time. And there are zero, and I mean zero, supporting calculations to back up that no impact claim. It's just an empty statement. So what's the official verdict on a closure like this? Well, it's not just a bad call or some sloppy paperwork. No, it's actually much more serious than that. Let's be crystal clear about this. Accepting a conclusion without objective, verifiable evidence is a failure of the GMP control system itself. It's not a valid QA disposition. It's a complete breakdown in the very process that's supposed to guarantee quality.
So this is the crucial part, understanding what we really mean by objective evidence. It is not a gut feeling. It's not an assumption. It is the concrete, provable information, the logs, the data, the test results that your entire decision has to stand on. It's the show your work of quality assurance, plain and simple.
Just winging it and relying on assumptions has real consequences. An indefensible decision creates these ripples of risk that can spread all through your organization, usually in ways you don't even see until it's far, far too late. And this visual just lays it out perfectly. It is a total domino effect. First, you weaken your own team's confidence in the batch release process. Then, you've created an obvious weak spot that practically invites challenges during an inspection. And from there, it can lead to a serious regulatory escalation. Each step is a direct result of the one before it. You have to remember this. Nothing, and I mean nothing, raises a red flag for an inspector faster than a QA department that can't explain the why behind its decisions. If you can't show them the evidence, they're going to assume the worst, and they are going to dig deeper. Okay, so we've seen the problem loud and clear. Now let's build the solution. What does a robust, evidence-based procedure actually look like? First things first, if you run into a closure like the one we talked about, you reopen it immediately. Next, you have to clearly define what kind of evidence is actually required. Logs, trends, results, the whole shebang. Then, you perform a formal risk assessment, documenting every single assumption and limitation. And this last part is absolutely critical. If the evidence you need is missing or you can't trust it, you must escalate the issue. Your final documentation package needs to be an ironclad record. Think of it like you're building a case. It has to list every single piece of evidence you reviewed, it has to have a detailed impact assessment, and it has to state the final QA disposition with a crystal clear rationale. You might even need a CAPA, a corrective and preventative action, just to make sure this failure doesn't happen again.
So really, it all comes down to a choice between two different worlds. The world of assumption is fast, it's easy, and it is incredibly weak. It will crumble the second it gets challenged. The world of evidence, on the other hand, is methodical, it takes work, sure, but it creates a strong, defensible position that will stand up to any scrutiny you throw at it.
All right, let's bring this all home by focusing on how to consistently build that defensible rationale and, just as importantly, how to avoid the most common trap that leads people down the wrong path in the first place. Listen up, because this is the #1 pitfall. The pressure to meet a deadline can make people take dangerous shortcuts. But closing a deviation just to check a box and get it off a list is the single most common reason for these weak, unsupported conclusions. And guess what? Inspectors know this. They check for it every single time. So, if you're going to remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. It's actually really simple. Above everything else, your rationale has to be defensible. Speed is totally irrelevant if the conclusion itself is built on sand. And that leaves us with one final thought. The next time you review a deviation or you sign off on a disposition, Just ask yourself this one simple question. If an inspector walked through the door right now and pointed to this exact record, could you defend it without even hesitating? Your answer to that question says everything.
Thank you for watching. If this helped, like and subscribe. More GMP scenarios coming.